It's going to be Alex against Wolfe. I mean, that is going to be another highlight, right?
Yeah, like beyond excited for this one. And I'm very excited to be able to cast this one with Aaron as well. Aaron, it's been a hot minute since we've been able to work together. And I mean, what a match to be able to get back on the desk together.
Absolutely, yeah. Super fun to be a part of this event. So thanks to Marcus for organizing, to all the players for participating, of course to Marcus and Billa for producing as well. And I think it's just really cool to get like such high level gameplay, you know, between so many incredible players. Part of the thing I was always curious about is also like, what kind of teams do these players want to bring to an event like this? Because I think you definitely want to take it seriously. You know, the stakes aren't exactly necessarily the highest, but the bragging rights are pretty insane if you do manage to beat all three players in it, right? And so, yeah, I think really exciting to see what the players have brought in. And so far, no major, like, crazy surprises, but it is very cool to see Thunderous return.
Yeah, and I think it's that saying, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And this is literally the best of the best that we've got battling it out together. So it's going to be, as you say, like the type of thing that is an accolade that has that bragging rights and has that prestige in a very different way to traditional tournaments in a way. But I mean, taking a look at Wolfey and Alex's teams here, again, a lot of really familiar faces, but then some really interesting choices on here. The Glamora, that's a really interesting choice from Wolfe. I'm looking forward to seeing what that can do.
Totally, yeah. It feels like, you know, early on in this format, there's been a lot of different team compositions around Tornadus, and Glamora plus Tornadus, this kind of hyper offense combo, is certainly one of them. I think one of the biggest strengths of Glamora, of course, is being able to get that +1 Meteor Beam, and with Incineroar being as common as it is, having a way to just get a one-hit knockout on Incineroar in this format's a really big deal. I think you often see Chi-Yu on these compositions paired with the Flutter Mane. There's actually no Chi-Yu, which is pretty interesting. And then once again, feels like we're going back to 2013. We saw Thunderous on the previous team, and now we've got Landorus Therian here instead of course, the common Landorus Incarnate, which dominates this format. So a physical, you know, ground type attacker rather than the special one.
Yeah, all the genies seem to have been unleashed for this particular tournament, and it's nice to be able to showcase all their different sides. I really like the pairing, like you mentioned, of Tornadus and Glamora, being able to set up something like that Tailwind to boost a Pokemon like Glamora that has just such offensive special attack damage potential. Then if you throw it into the Tailwind as well, it can be such a formidable threat to deal with. And that's nicely balanced out by some of the physical attackers you've got as well, like Urshifu, with the Choice Band. That's going to hit incredibly hard, that single strike variant.
Absolutely, yeah. And now taking a look, of course, at Alex's team, it feels like we've actually come back to Reg H a little bit. He is rocking Dragonite and Goldengo. This actually is the Skill Shot Dragonite. So Dragonite, of course, one of the most common Pokemon in the previous format we were playing, paired with Goldengo often. But it's actually quite surprising to see the combination of them on this composition.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to be able to see some, you know, familiar face from the past as well. Dragonite running that loaded dice to be able to help out with Scale Shot can give you a lot of flexibility out there on the field, as well as having the utility of that extreme speed priority to maybe get you out of a difficult spot, as well as having the priority with Rillaboom and Incineroar Fake Out. You also have that Grassy Glide, and that can easily give Alex a speed advantage and the opportunity to get a quick KO if, you know, a Pokemon's dwindled on HP and start swinging a bit of momentum in the match.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm really interested in this matchup is Glamora. Wolf's Glamora has so much damage pressure, right? You've got that Meteor Beam into the Dragonite and into the Incineroar. One of the biggest things about using Glamora, though, of course, is can you get that Meteor Beam at the right time, right? If Alex switches out a Pokemon, for example, goes into his Goldengo or goes for that Steel Terra with Dragonite, those are ways to circumvent getting one-shot by Meteor Beam. So it'll be important if Wolfe brings the Glamora to time that Meteor Beam, but it, of course, can get a lot of value here. And, of course, other thing to call out about Alex's team is he is running the Flutter Mane set, which feels like it has completely taken over this format. It's going to be the super bulky Flutter Mane with Taunt, Icy Wind, and Thunder Wave, and so super, super disruptive. We saw what Thunder Wave did in that previous game, and it certainly can be a big threat here. But Wolfe, of course, has a ton of speed control here, and actually he has Tailwind, whereas Alex doesn't, and so he can get off to a fast start likely in this matchup.
Yeah, Fluttermane's a Pokemon that I think's gone through a lot of different phases in terms of team building. We used to see it being really hyper offense with maybe, you know, choice specs, for example, and just a plethora of different moves. But now, as you kind of said, there are these options to go for some more supportive options with Thunder Wave, Taunt, Icy Wind. But what I love about Fluttermane is even if you do take that track for team building, the Moonblast is still going to hit incredibly hard. So it does just leave itself as such a formidable Pokemon that you always have to watch out for.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this battle is actually really funny to me because on one hand you have like the super offensive choice specs Fluttermane, which we've kind of been used to seeing, and then on the other hand you have this like new Fluttermane that's taking over the format with like super bulky, and so there's like, you know, two different flavors that you can approach the matchup with. But yeah, I think from Wolfe's end, he's just got so much offense across the board, whereas I think from Alex's end, the damage index is a little bit more heavily on a couple of Pokemon, right? If you can get that nasty plot off with Golden Go, which is actually led here immediately, then the Make It Rain becomes really powerful. And this actually looks like a really favorable lead so far for Alex, I would say. You pressure with Fake Out plus either a nasty plot or Make It Rain. You are up against Choice Specs Flutter Mane here, and so one of the things you have to worry about, of course, is just eating up a Shadow Ball turn 1.
Yep, this is our second match of the tournament as well, and the first for both of these players. So this is kind of their warm-up into the tournament. And as you've said, you know, Alex in a really great position, having that fake out utility. You can even try and break something like the Focus Sash on Wolf's Tornadus. We're not seeing the Covert Cloak there that I think we're used to maybe seeing on Tornadus to bypass that potential flinch. So that is something that Tornadus has to contend with.
And you can see, Wolf's debating, do I protect to get around the Fake Out, Make It Rain combo? Do I Bleak Wind plus Shadow Ball, right? I think the key tension right now is whether or not Golden Go decides to go for a Terra. If you're able to bait out that Terra, then your Flutter Mane can just threaten it with Moonblast later on. So you can see Wolfe thinking about potentially switching Flutter Mane out. But looks like happy to just go for the Shadow Ball here. Tornadus is going to start us off with the Protect, and we're going to have to see if Golden Go decides to Protect here as well as it does. So great turn, I think, for Alex.
Almost every second running down the clock there as well for Wolfe. Flutter Mane going for that Shadow Ball, but it is just going to find that Protect on that Golden Go. And as you said, really nice play by Alex here, maybe scouting out exactly what this Choice Specs Flutter Mane wants to lock into. Incineroar, however, is going to take off that Choice Spec, so it now is no longer locked.
Yeah, I think that was a safe play by Alex, and he ends up getting so much out of it, right? Ends up not getting baited into the Fake Out, Make It Rain combination, removes the Choice Specs from Flutter Mane, which in itself is already a big deal, and that did so much damage. Like, to do 75% to one of the key carries of Wolf's team is such a big deal, and so I think there was not much risk for Alex that turn, other than potentially eating up either a Moonblast Bleak Wind or switching Flutter Mane out into, say, one of the strong attackers in the back. And you saw Wolfe was considering it, but I think Wolfe trying to bait out a Terra, Alex just goes for the safe Protect and gets so much out of the turn. And so now the key question once again is, what do you do with the Golden Go slot this turn, right? Do you decide to go for the Terra? Do you decide to actually switch it out? We talked about Nasty Plot coming into this game, but you might not necessarily need to, because it's still quite powerful, right? You've got that Life Orb, and it's actually going to be a Terra commit here.
Yep, and the Terra is going to go down onto that Golden Go, so it is going to take to the skies, become a flying type, and this is going to give it a little bit of defensive capabilities against that potential Shadow Ball. It's no longer going to be able to hit for super effective damage, and does keep it in play. Flutter Mane has indeed locked that in. It goes across the board into that Golden Go, thanks to the Tressolization. It stays in play. The special defense drop though, Aaron, that's unfortunate.
Oh, but it just miss on Incineroar, connects on Golden Go, and Golden Go survives with just a sliver, but it's going to faint from its own Life Orb now as Make It Rain comes out, knocks out the Flutter Mane. I think Alex is at least probably relieved that he got an attack off with that Golden Go. It was so close to fainting from that double up after that special defense drop. So the Life Orb now, of course, going to activate. Golden Go is going to faint. But I would say that it did quite well in this game, right? It was able to get a knockout onto the Flutter Mane, which is such a powerful attacker here. Flutter Mane, of course, one of the big threats to the Dragonite in the back. And U-turn does not actually knock out Tornadus, but sometimes that could actually be favorable, because now like Wolfe doesn't get 2 free switch-ins into the Pokemon that he has in the back. And so we'll see what Alex decides to bring out there. He could have potentially taken a knockout with Incineroar there, but decides to want to pivot the Incineroar, save its Fake Out, save its Intimidate, which can be really valuable into the Landorus, the Ogerpon, even the Urshifu.
Yeah, so many variables in that particular turn as well. And I think you're right. You know, Alex was lucky to be able to get the Golden Go to get damage out on the board, let alone to be able to get a KO against one of the big Pokemon on Wolf's side. And now you have the utility to go for this U-turn. You can now bring this Flutter Mane in. The Photosynthesis boost is activated. So it's going to be a speedy Flutter Mane out there on the field.
So it's interesting, yeah. I was talking about maybe it's a good thing that the Tornadus didn't end up fainting, but Wolfe now can potentially set up a Tailwind with it, right? Like Alex, of course, if he has Rillaboom in the back, can thread and Fake Out and Grassy Glide, but you can just protect around that. And so Landorus is going to be the Pokemon to come in. It is going to be Incineroar coming back out as well. And so I think this Flutter Mane is actually looking really scary right now. It's a defensive Flutter Mane, but it does get access to that Icy Wind, and Icy Wind into a Landorus is quite scary. And so I'm thinking, yeah, there's the potential to Terra either Tornadus to get around a Fake Out, so you get that Tailwind up. You could always protect, of course, and then go for Tailwind the next turn. Landorus here might consider a defensive Terra as well to get around the Icy Wind.
It is always a bold use of your Terra, though, because it doesn't have a lot of longevity on the field. Sure, it gives you that Ghost typing to bypass the Fake Out, like you said, and you can get that Tailwind in, but with the low HP remaining on Tornadus, I don't think it's long for this particular tournament, and then you have lost your potential Terra to be able to utilize for more offensive means, but sometimes that is the key that you need in order to keep in the game, and that's something Tornadus can utilize, try and get the Tailwind up to deal with this opposing Flutter Mane.
So let's see. Yeah, this is the main thing, right? If you're able to get this Tailwind up, I actually think, yeah, without Tailwind, Wolfe might have been in a really tough spot because the Flutter Mane, it just like naturally outpaces everything. Instant here going for the classic. I am threatening Fake Out. You have to respect it. So I'm actually going to switch out and bring out my other Fake Out user. It's part of the reason why, you know, the Fake Out brothers in this format are so powerful and the top players are able to leverage it so effectively. So now, you know, you are able to potentially bait out a Terra. And if had Wolfe gone for Protect with both Pokemon, then you just threaten with Fake Out the subsequent turn. But Wolfe is going to commit the Terra to the low HP Tornadus, saying, look, if I do this, then I at least guarantee that I get my Tailwind up. But is that going to be worth it for him? No ability to Terra anything else now. And with Landorus protecting you means you are vulnerable to a Fake Out plus an attack the next turn.
I do, in a way, still feel like it was necessary. You need to be able to get this Tailwind up in order to work around this opposing Flutter Mane in some way, shape, or form, particularly as it's going for that Icy Wind. I like the Protect on that Landorus. You're able to then not take the speed drop. You can then reap the benefits of the Tailwind in play, as well as not take full-time super effective damage. And yes, you lose your Tornadus, but now Wolfe has the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon from the back that can benefit from this Tailwind a little bit more.
Yeah, but this is what's awkward now, right? Like, no Terra commit, and it's Choice Band Urshifu coming out, so you can't protect in front of this Fake Out. It's part of the brilliance of Alex cycling the Fake Outs here. And so the Rillaboom now, of course, can choose to Fake Out either slot. Lander's just protected. Neither of these can Terra, and so I think Alex actually, by pivoting in the Rillaboom just at the right time, baits out the Terra from Wolfe's end, and it's looking really, really scary. Even though Wolfe has the speed advantage, I think this turn is so free for Alex.
True as well, and we know that the Flutter Mane on Alex's side has that Moonblast. That's something that the Urshifu really doesn't want to have to take as well, particularly as it is that single strike variant. It's going to be able to deal a huge amount of damage, so much in fact to be able to get the knockout, and now it's just Landorus left on Wolfey's side to try and keep him in this game one, but I think it's too much of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, the key turn, I think, really was switching out that Incineroar so that you had Rillaboom out once Tailwind was set up, right? And so now it is... Oh, actually, it's just going to be stopping. This might get the knockout here, as it does, but Landorus probably has a little bit too much to do, as it has to go up against, you know, both Rillaboom as well as the Incineroar. And so the Woodhammer here in itself going to come out, and that is just going to get the knockout. So I think, yeah, the way that Alex approached this was really nice. I think Golden Go plus the Instant was just a phenomenal lead, right? Because it put on so much offensive pressure right away. It felt like Alex got what he wanted out of that Golden Go. It was a little bit scary, of course, with that special defense drop, but crucially got to make it rain off. And then the way he cycled between Incineroar and Rillaboom was so masterfully done. Wolfe felt the pressure, felt like he needed to go for the Terra, right? But had he maybe not Terra the Tornadus, he would have had the ability to Terra the Urshifu, which could have then gotten around potentially Moonblast knocking out. These Flutter Manes normally are like not very offensive. I've even seen Flutter Manes with like max HP, max defense, and so by getting rid of the fighting typing, like maybe if Urshifu's bulky enough, it could survive a Moonblast. But either way, yeah.
I think you call it really perfectly there, where it's like Alex had the pressure the whole way through that particular game and was constantly forcing Wolfe to have to make adjustments, whether or not it was that Protect on the Golden Go right at the beginning, where it was like, hey, I'm still in the game, you can't Shadow Ball me again, and then going for the Terrestrialization, or as you say at the end, going for that switch with that Rillaboom. Constantly Alex was just commanding the Pokemon in play and just forcing Wolfe to have to make the adaptations.
Totally, yeah. I think a couple of things that Wolfe can do differently. The first thing is if you think it's going to be Incineroar Golden Go lead again, I think like Landorus is the natural adaptation, right? Because like you can protect potentially around the turn one Fake Out play, and then you pressure with Earthquake or Stomping Tantrum in the subsequent turn. Alex, of course, could get around that by going for a Nasty Plot, so it's not just like a guaranteed safe play. But I think the key thing is like Golden Go got so much off in that last game, and part of the reason it was able to thrive was because Wolfe didn't really have switch-ins, right? It was Tornadus, Flutter Mane, Landorus, Urshifu. If you look at his team, the fifth Pokemon is Glimmora. That can't really switch in to make it rain well either. And then so Ogerpon is another adjustment where if you're thinking, hey, Alex is going to play towards Golden Go, you can try to bait out, you know, you like ideally want to bait out the Terra and then you get your Golden Go out. But either way, yeah, I think like Wolfe definitely has a couple of different approaches he can take. I thought Glimmora was a Pokemon that was really interesting coming into this, and we didn't see it. And so potential adaptation from his end as well with that Pokemon.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of the Glimmora as well, but then you were talking about the Golden Go, and I'm like, what can Glimmora really do to challenge it? I mean, it's got the Earth Power, sure, but then Sludge Bomb not going to be doing anything. The Meteor Beam just going to be eaten up by the Golden Go, and unless I guess you were able to force that Terrestrialization out somehow and then catch it with the balloons in the sky.
Let's see if it's the same leads from both ends. It is going to be Incineroar and Golden Go as a run back once again. And Tornadus Flutter Mane. Okay, so yeah, it's actually the exact same combo. So I think that, you know, main lead advantage once again goes to Alex. And you can say, oh, Wolfe playing really aggressively here, just going for Shadow Ball plus the Bleak Wind Storm. Alex, of course, could go for just Fake Out into the Tornadus, Terra his Golden Go, and make it rain here. He could also just protect Golden Go once again, because he doesn't actually lose that much from it. Like, the main thing that you lose from going for it is if you think Wolf's going to make a read and switch in, say, his Landorus or his Ogerpon or his Urshifu, which all of those would actually then threaten Incineroar and Golden Go pretty substantially. And so, yeah, Wolf locking in really quickly here. I'm excited to see if Alex makes a change this time around.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to be bold and brave in order to get that momentum swing, and that looks like what Wolf has kind of opted in for here, but it is going to be a Terrestrialization straight away from that Golden Go. I think maybe thinking, hey, if the Shadow Ball does come my way again, particularly as the choice specs will be firmly locked on the Flutter Mane in this turn, that's something that the Golden Go has to contend with, but the Fake Out did go down into that Tornado, so we're not going to see anything from it, but that choice specs Shadow Ball is still not going to be able to get the knockout onto that Golden Go, but does do a significant amount of damage. But speaking of damage, Aaron, that's how it's done. Golden Go gets a double knockout.
Yeah, I would say if you're Alex, like, that was exactly the perfect play to make to counter what Wolf did, right? Like, I think having the lead advantage means that you already have the momentum, and Alex was like, I'm not just going to go for the same play again. You might have predicted me to just go for Protect and switch in your attackers. It's going to be Landorus Glimmora in the back, but what's scary is Wolf did not get that Tailwind up, right? And so with no Tailwind available, you now lose the speed control war, which means that if Flutter Mane once again is in the back, it can get an Icy Wind off, ensuring that Rillaboom or even Golden Go can outpace things here. And so that was, I would say, the perfect turn one for Alex there. Calls out exactly what he thinks Wolf might do, and gets a huge lead here.
I mean, in game one, we saw the Incineroar kind of feint the Fake Out. You know, it didn't go for it, switched in the Rillaboom, but then here I think Wolf was hoping it was going to pull the same kind of trick, and instead it backfired a little bit. And now, you know, you're down 2 Pokemon after turn 1. Glimmora is not in the environment that it really wants to be in. Although that said, you have the Incineroar in play. You could always try and go for something like that Meteor Beam, get some big damage out, and get the special attack boost to boot.
Absolutely. I think like this is a key turn for Wolf, because even though you're down 2-4, you have the speed advantage with both of your Pokemon, right? And so for Alex's end, it's like, do you want to actually switch in your Flutter Mane or potentially your 4th Pokemon if it's Rillaboom once again, right? Because if you do, you are at risk of it getting knocked out immediately. And so Alex actually is going to take the time to pivot here. Of course, it leaves him vulnerable to potentially whatever's coming and getting knocked out, but it is also going to be a new pick here in the Dragonite here. So a little bit of an adaptation from Alex's end. Dragonite, of course, would be immune to any of the ground type damage here from Landorus, but not that Terra Blast.
Yep, Landorus is going to be going to the skies even higher, let's say, in order to drop its ground typing. It now is just a pure flying type. So that does give it a little bit of flexibility, but critically is boosting this Terra Blast into the flying type. And that's going to be enough to get the knockout onto the opposing flying terrestrialized Pokemon in the form of that Golden Go. So it is able to secure a knockout here. And that's something that I think Wolf really needed.
Yeah, I think this is actually a huge turn, right? Because the Golden Go, had it been able to get another Make It Rain off, would be so scary. And Wolf does manage to get the Meteor Beam off into the Dragonite. Let's switches in here, right? And so I think Wolf having the perfect turn to get himself back into this one, it's going to be a ton of damage. I'm curious if it's able to actually knock out the Dragonite here. Let's see. Does it get the one-hit knockout? It does not. So close.
Oh, the multi-scale on that Dragonite really being in prime position. Dragonite able to sit so pretty on the field at 1 HP. It's just able to hang on. That would have been so great for Wolf to really even out the Pokemon count. But I still think it gives you a huge bout of momentum. You've got that special attack boost coming up as well. And now you're forcing Alex to have to bring in a Pokemon from the back. But you mentioned before the Flutter Mane. That's still something you have to watch out for.
Yeah, the Flutter Mane's something you have to watch out for, but then the question I have is, how do you do enough damage if you are Alex, right? Like, I was a little bit surprised to see Golden Go get sacrificed there, because I was thinking, and then maybe, yeah, the answer is there's just no Flutter Mane in the back, right? Because if there were Flutter Mane, I think one approach you could take is you, like, protect, you switch out into a Flutter Mane, get an Icy Wind off, and then after an Icy Wind, Make It Rain is just so powerful. And so I think the momentum actually swings very heavily back into Wolf's favor, where now you have a ton of offensive pressure. The Dragonite, of course, being able to survive, though, means it can potentially just get a scale shot off, which is really powerful. Incineroar right now does have the ability to just go for a protect, and so it's like the classic, do you think I'm going to protect, and does Alex once again go for a switch out into Rillaboom? So my main question right now is, what did Alex bring as his final Pokemon?
Yeah, that could definitely swing the option for Glimmora here, because, Incineroar, you want to Earth Power, Rillaboom, you want to Sludge Bomb, but you don't necessarily want to hit the wrong target with those moves. It's going to be underwhelming. And in this particular match, with a lot of the powerhouses that are out there at the moment, you want to make sure that every single turn is counting. Landorus, however, just decides to go straight for the Protect here, just playing nice and defensively in the form of this Fake Out coming through. And Dragonite is going to match that across the field as well, maybe trying to see exactly what Wolf is going to play out with this particular turn. Glimmora goes for the Sludge Bomb, however, it does get the poison. That's going to start tacking up a little bit, but obviously isn't going to be as monumental as the Earth Power would have been.
Oh, and the Flare Blitz, yeah, just into Incineroar. Like, I think Alex on that one turn just gave up so much damage on both of what are his like key damage dealers in this game, right? Like, yeah, it was cool Dragonite hung on, but it's actually slower than the Landorus here. And so now it's actually really safe for Wolfe to just attack with both, right? And so that one turn was huge. Like, committing Meteor Beam into the Incineroar and then Dragonite eating it up was, I think, a disaster for Alex, because otherwise, like, if the Meteor Beam is committed on the Glimmora, you actually don't have very good damage into Dragonite. Like, you would need to double up into it. And so I think that turn just completely swung the game back into Wolfe's favor despite a very favorable turn one. So it's going to be extreme speed. You can see Alex was trying to put the Landorus in Flare Blitz KO range. And so that's the idea behind, baiting out the Protect. Could have been Scale Shot potentially onto the Glimmora, but ends up not being the case. And now Dragonite just feints. And so after turn one, it looked really, really tough. But now I'd say Wolfe is in full control of this one.
Hey, that's why these guys are the best in this game. They're able to come back from any setback. Incineroar is not going to be able to see if it could get the double up into the Landorus, because Glimmora is going to fell it here and now with that Earth Power. It does find its mark, and Wolf's Pokemon celebrating, having really sprung the momentum right back into its trainer's favor here. It looks like it's the Rillaboom in the back here, not the Fluttermane.
Yeah, and that explains, I think, to me why Alex, didn't try to conserve that Golden Go. And I think this just shows, like, even just Glimmora and Landorus' natural speed make a big difference here, right? Had Alex brought Fluttermane once again, like that previous game, I think it would have been able to threaten Icy Wind, and you have this end game where you have Icy Wind plus Golden Go getting another Make It Rain off. But because Landorus and Glimmora are just naturally faster than basically the rest of Alex's team, Wolfe, like, is able to come back from, down 2-4. And I think, once again, the key turn is getting that Meteor Beam off, managing to snipe Dragonite as it's switched in there. I think Alex there potentially had the ability to maybe go for like a U-turn to pivot out, saying, look, if you Meteor Beam, maybe you knock me out, but then you've committed it, which means no Meteor Beam afterwards. But it makes sense for him to want to conserve the Intimidate. The main thing is that Rillaboom is awful here in this end game, right? Like, it does not do well into a Flying Terra Landorus at all. And so I think, Alex had an amazing turn one. He's probably thinking it might be a Pokemon adjustment going into the next one.
Yeah, Glimmora and Wolfe just playing defensively here around this particular fake out, and I think this is nice for our trainers as well. They're given the opportunity as we advance towards what's looking very likely to be this game 3, obviously. They're using a little bit of extra time to think maybe possibly about what's going to be the adaptations, how things are going to play, and Wolfe now just in a prime position to start cleaning things up. I think coming through into that Game 3 situation, you have to start thinking about whether there is a Pokemon on the other side that needs to be an adaptation. Wolfe obviously switched in Glimmora for this Game 2, and it worked out so beautifully.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, I don't know, I was surprised to see Wolfe go with the same lead once again, but I think the Landorus Glimmora in the back made a ton of sense as a way to try to sweep through. This game, in my opinion, showed like how both of these combined are such a big offensive threat, right? And so I think from Alex's end, you can't let them just deal so much damage across the board. And so you can consider, like Fluttermane was the key adjustment I was thinking would be really good. To me, like Golden Go still actually feels like the best Pokemon on Alex's end, where it just is able to get so much damage with Make It Rain. So I think Alex might be thinking, well, I want to set up my Golden Go for success. To me, though, I'm like, if Wolfe is able to just like get a safe Tailwind up, it honestly seems quite tricky. I feel like Wolfe was like taking some risks on turn one of both games that it didn't necessarily work out. And so I actually like kind of like his matchup a little bit more. So I'm curious if this time around, I mean, you could always just like lead Tornadus with another Pokemon that can protect on turn one, protect with both, then try to set up your Tailwind afterwards. But yeah, it was like really happy to see both the Landorus and Glimmora, because I felt like the offensive potential both of those are so good.
I mean, as you said, it's kind of hard to set that Tailwind up, particularly around a lot of the fake up Pokemon on the opposing side, but it was amazing to see that even in that game too, with no Tailwind, there were Pokemon that were able to benefit from just their natural speed in play anyway. That, the Glimmora and the Landorus were still in a prime position to quite literally bring Wolfe back into that match. So possibly from that Tornadus side, you don't even need that Tailwind in order to be able to position your Pokemon up for success.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we saw Alex lean into some new Pokemon there, namely the Dragonite, but Dragonite being slower than the Landorus, I don't think did it any favors. And I think also obviously eating up a Meteor Beam and almost getting one shot also wasn't great. And so I could, understand the reasoning behind Dragonite. Like, it can be quite good into some of Wolfe's Pokemon. But it's like, I think tough because you basically need to knock out Fluttermane first to get it out. And even with Fluttermane having gotten knocked out, like, I think Alex, just was willing to take a risk that turn and say, look, if you end up Meteor Beaming into the other slot, or if you don't click Meteor Beam, my Dragonite gets to come out for free. But I think maybe a return to the Fluttermane would make some sense. I mean, Urshifu on his end can put on a lot of offensive pressure as well as like a late game sweeper. But yeah, the main thing here is I think if you're Wolfe, you probably want to prioritize setting up your Tailwind a little bit more at some point. So let's see if it's a run back once again with Incineroar and Golden Go.
Yep, looks like we are seeing Incineroar on Golden Go, but there is a slight change on Wolfie's side. We have got the Tornadus with the Flutter Mane. This is kind of obviously back to game one and game 1 and 2. I'm seeing a lot here, Aaron.
All right, here we go. You can see it's once again the protect hover into the potential Shadow Ball. You know, we saw how this played out last time, which was just in game 1, protect and knock off into the Flutter Mane. And so I once again would say I favor Alex's position here. It is going to be the Ogre Pawn adjustment this time from Wolf's end, and I think that makes a lot of sense as a way to potentially switch into this Make It Rain. So is it going to be a turn 1 switch? It is, yeah. And I like this a lot because I think, like I was saying earlier, you only have one resistance to the Make It Rain. It is the Ogre Pawn. And so I think this is really, really smart because if Alex goes for either, you know, the knockoff protect or the fake out Make It Rain, you actually cover for both of those with Ogre Pawn.
Yeah, and you also then keep your Flutter Mane nice and safe in the back. You don't have to lock into anything at this turn. You know, you just can avoid that Make It Rain entirely. Tornadus as well, I think, learning from game 2 and going for the protect here, doesn't want to contend with that fake out, slowing it down and breaking its focus dash. But it looks like Golden Go on the opposing side says, like, I see you, and I kind of want a piece of this too. So this really only needs Incineroar on the field that goes for that Flare Blitz, catches the Ogerpon on the switch and does 50% damage and gets the burn. Incineroar, wow, you're not messing around.
I like the adjustment by both players here. That burn, I think, is actually super unfortunate because it means just Ogerpon's damage is so reduced. But I love the adjustment from both ends. Like, Wolf's play covered for both of Alex's plays in game 1 and game 2. And Alex is even one step ahead. And it's like, hey, Flare Blitz is also a good option here. If your Flutter Mane switches in, I just do a ton of damage to you. I think it's likely this time you have made the adjustment and to bring in that Ogerpon. I mean, that Flare Blitz, even without the burn, just did so much damage, right? But I think the burn is so big here because it means now, like, a Golden Go is just not really threatened by offense whatsoever. And so the main question here is, you know, if you're Alex, if you think you're, you know, Incineroar's going to survive an Ivy Cudgel plus a Bleak Windstorm, like, you could U-turn out, you could, like, potentially just threaten a knockout onto both Pokemon right now. And so, yeah, I think the burn just taking away the option of Ivy Cudgel potentially getting a knockout onto either Pokemon.
And I wonder about the Make It Rain potential coming through here. The Bleak Wind Storm is going to connect first of all, just do a little bit of damage to both the opposing Pokemon and critically just lower the speed on that Golden Go. U-turn from the Incineroar, though, is going to be able to get the knockout. So really, Ogerpon, it was nice to see her, but it's been short-lived as the Incineroar is able to now switch out, give Alex a little bit of a shake-up in the board position and adjustment as we wait to see what this Golden Go is able to do.
Yeah, moving before the Golden Go as well, which I think is one of the trends we've actually seen in the format recently is like people running a ton of speed investment on the Incineroar. And, you know, Golden Go being bulky would not be super surprising, but I think now Golden Go is able to just get a huge either Make It Rain, which would bring Tornadus down to its sash, or it could even Nasty Plot. I think Make It Rain makes more sense here because you just, like, want to go all in on offense. And, yeah, Tornadus now brought down to 1 HP. I think Alex in a phenomenal position once again. It would have been really interesting to see how this game would have played out without the burn, I think, because, like, Ogerpon still took so much damage and was threatening, but it would have been able to threaten, right, like a Water Terra Ivy Cudgel. But in the current game state, I think Rillaboom is looking really scary. You pressure Grassy Glider, fake out into Tornadus. You could also just, like, protect Golden Go, Wood Hammer into Flutter Mane if that comes out. And so you can see Wolf debating who to bring out. I think Landorus makes more sense here. You get the Intimidate off into the Rillaboom, and then can threaten with Flying Terra Blast. But I think this has been such a treat to watch because we've seen the same leads all 3 times, but it's been a completely different, like, turn 1 all 3 times as well. And you can see how both players are trying to, like, get into each other's heads.
Yeah, definitely. The mind games are really prevalent, particularly when you come through into a game 3 situation, and you've seen adaptations throughout the match as well. You know, are you going to go with what won you your game, or are you going to throw complete caution to the winds? And Wolf constantly making these adaptations time and time again. Flutter Mane is now able to join in, but Alex has done the thing that we're seeing all the time from Incineroar and Rillaboom, constantly switching in. There's now fake up pressure on the board, again, thanks to Rillaboom here, and Golden Go in prime position to get a knockout on the Tornadus and a significant amount of damage into the Flutter Mane with another Make It Rain. Even though it's dwindled in offensive capabilities, it's still going to be able to hit hard.
This is a huge turn, I think, right? Like, Wolf is playing pretty significantly from behind, and he chose to bring out Flutter Mane over Landorus, which means, like, he is, you know, you can see he's, like, thinking hard, right? Like, do I want to Moonblast the Golden Go? Do I want to switch into Landorus? Kind of the classic bait and switch. So the question is, yeah, do we see a potential Terra from the Golden Go? Alex could always just protect the Golden Go, Wood Hammer until a Flutter Mane. If that happens, I think Alex probably just wins the game. And so this in itself is a really big turn. If you're Alex, the other thing you might be scared of is eating up Bleak Wind Storm plus, you know, Fairy Terra Moonblast onto a Rillaboom. So yeah, Wolf's taking a pretty big risk here, going for Moonblast onto Golden Go. First of all, does Golden Go protect? And does Rillaboom Wood Hammer into the Flutter Mane?
Well, Rillaboom goes
Ooh.
for the Grassy Glide instead, so no Woodhammer today. Instead, just getting a significant chunk onto the Landorus. Golden Go not going to be taking too much from the Moonblast there, but can retaliate with that Make It Rain. Flutterbane able to hang on though, thanks to the drops that it took from Make It Rain in the previous turn as well. That's something Golden Go does have detrimental to that incredibly powerful move.
Yeah, crucially there, Alex did not go for a Terra with Golden Go. And so Wolf was trying to predict the Terra. The Terra didn't come out. And I think now Alex should be in prime position to win this game because everything is one Grassy Glide away from getting knocked out. I think Lander's eating up so much that damage there is a disaster because it was kind of the primary win condition here in the end game, right? Like if you get it out, it can Flying Terra and Terra Blast Rillaboom. But now it Alex could always just Grassy Glide into that slot, right? And so this gives Alex such a huge advantage. And I love the decision to just attack here. No protects. Grassy Glide here knocks out the Fluttermane. Crits, but that definitely would have gotten it either way. So it means Landorus should get an attack off here, but with no Flying Terra Blast onto Rillaboom, yeah, I think it's just too hard to get around Rillaboom plus all the Pokemon in the back.
It'll take itself down as well, I think, right? With the Life Orb.
Oh, let's see. How low is it? It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. Oh, poor Landorus, just having a difficult time out here. And I mean, Rillaboom is able to celebrate, and I think quite wisely done, because now the only Pokemon that's coming back in is this Tornadus on 1 HP, and as you've identified, Aaron, there's so much priority out there. You've got to contend with both this full HP Fluttermane that we know also has good special defenses. It's just too much for the Tornadus, I believe.
And you can see Alex does reveal his final Pokemon, which is that Fluttermane. And so I think he was prepared if we were in a similar situation to Game 2, right? Where I like the decision to go back to it over Dragonite. But this was a really, really fun set because it felt like both players, you could see the adjustments that they were trying to make. And in my head, I felt like Alex had the lead advantage all 3 games with Incineroar Golden Go. And it felt like Wolf was kind of playing from behind and then like had to make the right play. But then Alex kind of just like made the perfect play, turn 1 all 3 games.
Yeah, I think particularly with this composition of the Tornadus, because I think in the past when it was like the Covert Cloak Tornadus that was running around everywhere, you didn't have that same fear going down into like a Fake Out Pokemon, for example. But at the same time, if you're running Covert Cloak, you're not running Focus Sash, the Make It Rain is going to be able to hit really hard and potentially put yourself into KO range. So it's kind of it's a difficult balance game to be able to come into here, and Alex was just able to adjust according to what Wolf brought to this match so beautifully. Yeah,
I think one thing that was really tricky is if you are Wolf, like, you could obviously just protect in front of the Golden Go, right, and see what it wants to do. But then there's always the threat of it like going for a nasty plot. And I think if Golden Go gets the +2, then it has the ability to just literally one-shot almost anything on Wolf's team. Like, not having the resistances to make it rain, make it really scary. And the fact that Alex had double Fake Out pressure with Incineroar plus Rillaboom plus the Intimidate, there's a reason why Incineroar, Rillaboom, Golden Go were so good in previous VGC formats, right? And I think, like, I thought Alex's play was honestly just quite phenomenal, where, like, him getting turn 1 right all 3 games was super impressive. I think game 2 he had a huge lead, but it was like a combo of not having Fluttermane in the back and then also switching in Dragonite on the Meteor Beam. So it shows that, like, with a team like that, your damage index is really heavily on a couple of Pokemon, namely the Golden Go and like the Rillaboom. Dragonite could have been that damage dealer, but then of course wasn't able to actually do anything in that second game other than the extreme speed.
Yeah, and what I kind of liked as well is how the Incineroar made a mockery of that opposing Ogerpon as well, was able to do so much damage, get the burn, and then the KO with that U-turn. But in case you're just tuning in, our previous match was a best of 3 thriller. We had Alex versus Wolfey, and Alex was able to come out on top. So our next match will be able to be set up. This is between the 2 losers of their previous game. So it's a double elimination tournament. So you're not knocked out until you've taken your second loss. So Marco and Wolfey will now be battling out to stay in the tournament.